Hi, my name is Leona O'Callaghan and I'm one of the whistleblowers of the University of Limerick. There's a number of us that have come forward lately in the hope that the experiences that we have had won't be repeated and that other people won't go through the same thing that we did. After highlighting some wrongdoing, I felt that I lost my position within the university and was managed out. For me, I can only tell my own story, but I do know that there's many others that have come forward also, and many others that have had to sign confidentiality agreements when they left, so they can't come forward because they feel as if their story is gagged. And I'm here today mostly for myself and to say my story, but also for to stand up for the others and say what's happening isn't okay. I got my job in the University of Limerick about 6 years ago, and for the first number of years, everything was great. I saw no wrongdoing whatsoever. I felt as if everything was above board, and I got on really, really well with my management. And then I was promoted to the job of expenses, and that's where I felt that there was a VIP list of people that basically exceptions were made for. And that's when I struggled within my role. And before I go into some of those examples, I just want to say and be clear that my husband works in UL. I have a lot of really good friends that work in the University of Limerick, and you know, when I speak about my experience in my department, I speak solely about the ones that I had experience in. There's other departments within the university that work extremely hard, that are extremely efficient, and are unfortunately let down by other departments. And those people don't deserve the bad reputation and the reputational damage that's come from what's come out with the whistleblowers. And I just want to acknowledge that there is some people and some departments in there that are extremely honest and extremely hardworking, that this video basically doesn't really represent. But within the accounts department and within the expenses position, I was asked to make exceptions to many rules depending on who the person was rather than what the claim was for. Things like, initially I remember there was no expenses policy, even though every other university seemed to have one. UL didn't, and I asked for that to be introduced. Then there was some payments that were for mileage there, and basically it was pretend mileage, because these people they'd done work with the university, or they were given extra payments for work, but rather than put through salaries and pay tax and declare it, it was done in a kind of a loophole way, where they would enter a claim for mileage from their home address to the university a number of times. Like, for example, one of them on the 23rd of November, I remember there was a claim for, and it was €150 multiplied by 10 times. And there was no real rate used, no proper rate used, so it immediately caught my attention. And when I looked into it, then I was told straight out these people were being paid for work that they'd done. And I felt, okay, well, everybody else has to pay income tax, and the same rules should apply to everybody. And I tried to tell my management I wasn't comfortable to make those payments, and that it was tax evasion and social welfare fraud in some occasions. And I was put under pressure to make the payments, and some of them I made, and others I put my foot down. I said no, I wasn't doing it. Other examples were spa treatments for lecturers. Other examples were a fitted kitchen that was delivered to a lecturer's home. Another example would be that when lecturers might be going, and it wasn't always lecturers, but they could be senior staff members, is normally what they were, and it all depended on kind of what circles they were from and what status they had. And they had claims there for trips with their wives. One particular one I remember was for $4,500 for a trip to Sydney. And his wife doesn't work in UL, so I stopped the expenses that were claimed for his wife's costs. And he then decided that he was going to charge for his time in advance and put in a claim for €15,000. At first I was told by my management, no, absolutely not, don't pay it. Then for some reason they come under pressure and they decided, okay, we need to pay it, but and make an exception. But they wouldn't sign it. They wouldn't sign their name to that decision. They expected me to sign it. They expected me to pay it. And eventually I did pay it, and I had to pay it in a certain way, that it was done through smaller amounts, like €5,000 at a time, so that it didn't raise suspicion from auditors. Especially seeing that this person was supposed to be on sabbatical leave, and I was told, okay, they shouldn't be claiming for that while they're on sabbatical leave. Now, I went to my financial controller, I went to the VP of Finance, I went to the President's office. I did everything I could to say, actually, I'm not okay with this. Nobody else wants to sign it. within the accounts department. I don't want to sign it. We all agree it shouldn't be paid, but I was still put under pressure to sign it. And eventually the time came where, after a number of things, again, honorariums would be another, what was more or less brown envelope payments for people that were tax free, were paid through expenses, and I was expected to put them through, and the rules kept changing as to who was allowable and who wasn't allowable. And similarly, there was payments, for example, to somebody's sister, who literally gave a piece of paper that said B&B services and a certain figure, and I was told to go ahead and pay it and make an exception, even though it wasn't a receipt, even though she didn't own a B&B. And I've given all these details, I've given all the names, I've given all the dates, I've given all the the backup emails to the Minister for Education and to the HEA. And I'm willing at this stage actually to in the next number of weeks, if there isn't any movement from the Department of Education, to actually to give those names and to say who they were, because it's all the truth, and none of it is made up, none of it is misleading, and I do feel that it's public money and the public do deserve to know. And basically I got to a point where I wasn't willing to do it anymore. I didn't want to have my hand and be part of the system. So even though I had always tried to use my voice, I'd always kind of ruffle the feathers when people would make those claims. And I would send off many emails to say I wasn't comfortable with it. I got to the stage where I wasn't actually willing to just pay them anymore. I wasn't willing to sign them anymore. And that's when things became difficult for me. And I felt managed out then of my position. So I paid a really high price. Honesty and integrity were very important to me. And I feel that because of that, and because of my refusal to play ball really in this gravy train system within the civil service, kind of a lot of civil servants places, but especially within the university, which is my experience. Because I took that stance, me and my children and my husband paid a heavy price in me losing my job and my career, because I couldn't say really and get a good reference. I couldn't say where I worked, so I kind of felt as if my whole field of accountancy had actually been tarnished, because I'd done the right thing. And I wasn't confused in my role. I wasn't unsure about anything. I had checked with the Department of Education. I checked with the ACCA. I'd given examples, and I knew for sure that a lot of the payments I was being put under pressure to make shouldn't be made out of public funds. Mary Harney was in the papers at the same time for getting her haircut on public money, and if Mary Harney can't get her haircut on public money, then surely a lecturer can't get a spa treatment on public money. And I knew my stuff, and I was good at my job, but I lost it anyway, and they got away with it. And now 2 others are suspended. There's a number of others that have come forward. We've gone to the HEA, and even though the HEA have done an initial investigation, which again cost €80,000 to the taxpayers, they said that a wider investigation was needed, both into the HR department and other departments, and basically where they broke their own policies, and the university basically said no, and they said they won't comply and they won't allow it. So the HA have had to put their hands up and say, well, now they don't have power to enforce it. So it's now with the Department of Education, who unfortunately didn't we spent nearly a year and a half looking for an appointment, and we couldn't get one. Eventually we actually had to go up to the Department of Education, and I threatened a sit-in, and I sat there and I said, I'm not moving until you give me an appointment with the minister, because at the end of the day, somebody somewhere has to make the university accountable for the decisions it's taken. And when I met with I eventually got my appointment, and I met with the Minister for Education, and he has told us he'll look into it, and he's told us that he'll come back to us, and I'm really hoping that he does, and that he doesn't let us down, because we've been let down enough. And I'm here today because other whistleblowers have also come forward. When I lost my job, there was a lot said about me that was completely untrue. My husband, who worked in UL, felt very isolated by people who once were a very integral part of his work, and he had done nothing wrong. And very hurtful things were said about me, and I can completely relate to the smear campaign that has happened with other whistleblowers. And it's not okay. It's not okay, especially when it takes a lot to stand up in this day and age and say, you know what, that's not right, and I don't want to be part of it. And it's not okay that I and my kids and my husband paid a huge price simply because I tried to do the right thing. So I asked for the public to give your support and to help to make the likes of the University of Limerick accountable for the decisions that they've taken, and put pressure on the Department of Education and the powers that be to make decisions so that this doesn't continue, and to right some of the wrongs that was created back then. Thanks for your time, Leona.